Today we will demonstrate how to trim the width of FusionFrame trimmable brick mold. First, you must identify which profile of FusionFrame brick mold is trimmable and which profile is not. There are a couple of ways to tell. One way to tell is by looking at the end of the brick mold profile. The non-trimmable profile will have a wood substrate filling the entire cavity of the FusionFrame brick mold base. The trimmable profile will contain a wood substrate spanning approximately half of the brick mold base, leaving a gap under the elevated portion of the finished brick mold cap. Another way to tell which brick mold is trimmable and which is not is to look at the finished cap. Look for a series of score lines on the elevated portion. The non-trimmable brick mold will be smooth at the elevated portion. The trimmable brick mold will have 3 visible score lines at the elevated portion. Before trimming the brick mold, remove the finished cover from its base by inserting a nail puller or a large screwdriver into the hollow bottom portion of the brick mold leg. Then pry the cover upward to start the separation. FusionFrame trimmable brick mold can be trimmed using a couple of methods. One method is by scoring the material with a sharp utility knife, or by the preferred method, a stationary or portable table saw. The FusionFrame trimmable brick mold cap has multiple score line areas approximately 1/8 of an inch apart. Please note to only trim within the elevated side of the brick mold cap as shown by the red arrows. Before trimming the brick mold leg, secure the brick mold unseparated with a clamp to prevent it from moving around. Take the sharp utility knife and begin scoring at your predetermined score line. Scoring the material should be done slowly and at short distances to prevent getting outside the score line, which could damage the face of the finished cap and cause injury. The scoring process will require multiple passes until the material is ready to be snapped off. After scoring, separate the base from the finished cap, then break away the trim material. The base has only one score line area, which can be scored and snapped off. If the finished cap must be trimmed, score at the score line, snap off the excess material from the base, and discard. To trim FusionFrame trimmable brick mold using a table saw, you must first separate the finished cap from its base. The recommended table saw blade is a multi-tooth carbide tip for a smooth cut. Do not use a rip blade to trim the brick mold material. The blade shown is what was used for this video. Adjust your table saw blade height to extend at least 3/8 of an inch above the elevated portion of the finished cap. Please note that the maximum amount of material that can be removed from the finished cap is 5/8 of an inch. Removing more will affect the structural integrity of the brick mold. Trimming of the finished cap should be done with the decorative side up and the wood substrate side of the cap against the table saw fence. Keep slight downward pressure on the cap as you push forward to prevent the cap from rising. With the bottom of the brick mold facing up and with the wood substrate closest to the saw fence, adjust your fence for the blade to rip along the pre-scored line on the base material. Keep slight pressure downward on the base as you push forward to prevent it from rising. With the bottom of the brick mold facing up and with the wood substrate closest to the saw fence, adjust your fence for the blade to rip along the pre-scored line on the base material. Keep slight pressure downward on the base as you push forward to prevent it from rising. Each tip of the mitered header will need to be trimmed off at the same number of inches removed from the joining vertical brick mold leg. Do not remiter either the brick mold header or the brick mold leg. Choose your best method to trim the tip of the miter header. Here we used a crosscut fence blocked with wood to trim our marked line. Once the trimming has been completed, you can attach the brick mold to the FusionFrame jamb and apply sealant around the brick mold edge.